Hello and welcome back to another campaign diary. As always, I will post video game footage on the screen so you have something to look at if you're not a fan of listening to what is essentially a podcast while doing something else. So when last we left our when last we left our heroes, they discovered that in the cellar or basement of the cult building there was a Medusa, and they fought the Medusa. They were almost killed by the Medusa, but they struck a deal. They were going to lead the Medusa out of town safely, and all would be well and good. In reality, they asked the local cleric or local priest, what do you know about Medusa? How can we stop her? And together with the lieutenant, they devised a plan. They will hide some gunpowder in a bottleneck somewhere on the roads through the woods. And they would blow it up, basically. When we began our adventure, the cleric decided that he'd want to hang around with players, and I did that because the player who was killed in a previous adventure rolled up a new character, wanted to be a cleric, so I thought, ooh, this is amazing because now this cleric, my players have been talking to, can turn out to be this player's character, and it all worked perfectly fine. The same player whose character had died, his new character still had a reason to be part of the group and know what's going on and everything. So that was really, really good. But yes, soldiers came back to them and they said, okay, we placed the gunpowder, here is an explosive, good luck, please don't die. So it happened. The Medusa and the players walked through the woods. They came to the bottleneck, and a ranger put the tiny packet of explosives on an arrow, lit it, fired it into a certain area. The charge blew up, and then all of the gunpowder the Medusa was standing on also blew up, killing her instantly. One of the players also remembered how the Medusa could temporarily de-stonify, depetrify people using the sort of saliva that came from her snake hair. So they salvaged one of those snake heads, and using that and a lot of cloth and ropes as tourniquets, they were able to turn the statues of previously the half-eaten statues of the adventurers previously captured by the Medusa. They could turn them back to life. The fighter character, he could bring his brother back, and they questioned one of the still alive cultists that they had captured, and now they knew where their temporary headquarters were. So after visiting his father and wishing him good luck, saying goodbye, they went up to the north. And after some trouble, they found the headquarters. I say after some trouble because they really failed their perception check. So yeah, at some point the druid had to turn into a wolf so he could sniff out. So he could just use his keener ears and smell to locate the headquarters, and he could find that because he could smell some human urine, which was placed somewhere outside the headquarters. Yeah. Oh, by the way, the cultist they interrogated also told them that basically there are a couple of divisions. There is one division working on bringing Undia to the mortal plane. There is one division working on, integrating with high society in a sense, to make sure that a lot of people would listen to them, that they are quite influential. And then there is a division purely focused on brainwashing large groups of people at the same time, and together they wish to prepare the world for Undia and then bring her to the world so they can all rule it together. Our players arrived at the headquarters, and the druid player, still a wolf, he snuck inside, had a look around, and he saw a storage chamber and a library. And he also saw they heard two of the cultists talking together to one another. And then one of the cultists seemed to disappear through a wall, so they investigated the wall and they found a secret door. and they went down. There was also another entrance towards the rest of the headquarters, but fair enough. They took a staircase down and they saw a shrine with 3 cultists. Oh, and they also knocked one of the cultists unconscious. The other cultist, still in the library, they knocked him unconscious. This is a very important fact. So the other 3 cultists, I sort of designed them myself. They were basically strong fighters, and they had a cool ability where they could create a flash of light, because Undja is a solar vampire. The players know, or at least cultists have described Undja as a solar vampire. So yeah, they can create a flash of light that can temporarily blind people and make their attacks less effective, which I thought was quite cool. So yeah, it was 4 of my players against 3 cultists, and they killed the first cultist in basically no time at all. The second one shortly after, and the third one took a long time. Because you see, my players, they thought, oh, we want to make sure this one lives, because they don't know how many other cultists there are. Oh, right. They did know that there was going to be some high priest Rovald, but, you know, they didn't ask names before they charged in. So yeah, they wanted to keep at least one of them alive, one of the cultists. And one of my players didn't quite believe in dealing non-lethal damage using a longsword, which I can kind of understand, but at the same time I think, well, you can hack at someone's knees, I guess, and they won't enjoy it, but they probably will not die instantly. So, hey-ho. But yeah, he thought, no, I'm not going to use my longsword, because it felt unethical to him, which is totally fine, so he started using his fists. Sadly, fist fighting is not the most effective thing to do in Dungeons and Dragons. So it took ages, actually ages, well, and not actually, of course, but it took a really long time for them to finally beat that final cultist. And when the cultist was almost completely subdued, one of the players said, oh hey, do you remember that we tied up that other cultist we found in this place? Oh yeah, right. Well, in that case, I don't care what we do with this one. So they killed him after all, and it's so all that time that they tried to harm him but not kill him is just wasted, gone. But fair enough. It was a funny situation. It was a funny situation. So anyway, they progress through the dungeon. They come across some empty cells, across a very strange wooden bridge over a very deep pit, and the alarms in their heads went off immediately. They thought, uh-oh, something is going to go wrong here, which is exactly what I wanted them to think, even though I gave them no reason to do so other than, you know, a wooden bridge over a deep pit, which I guess it is worrying. But yeah, one of the players said, okay, I'm going to check for traps. I'm going to take my throwing axe and throw it across the bridge. And I asked, okay, do you want to throw it into the door that's directly on the other side? And they said something, I seem to recall them saying, if it's inevitable. I throw the axe to the other side. It's like, okay, the axe sticks into the door, and they hear a and the door is opened, and another cultist steps out. But they were able to get rid of them in only one round of combat. They just took hold of him and threw him over the edge, and that was that. But yeah, they then came into a small research hall where they found a drawing of a very strange-looking sword that had been shattered into 4 large pieces, and a small, tiny metal fragment, which was quite weird. But yeah, so they took everything with them, and they proceeded through the dungeon, and after 2 more rooms, they came into what looked like a throne room. And there was a normal cultist, which they then started referring to as Scrub Cultist, and a very fancy-looking cultist. He had the same sort of robes as the rest, but way more elaborate. And he also had a spear, or glaive, I suppose, made of a very strange black dark metal. There was a very short conversation between High Priest Rovald, obviously, and the party, and then he swung his glaive, and he was able to cast a magical spell doing that, basically. Combat broke out. My players against 1 cultist and High Priest Rovald, which I basically made a little bit stronger, with this special interesting weapon. And he could attack, and then, even though he had already attacked, he could still cast that spell again. That is might be his ability, or it's something that the glaive can do. Who can tell? Well, I can tell, but I'm not telling you, because I know for a fact that some of my players are listening. What was I saying? Yes, at some point, the fighter says, you know what? I'm going to do a grapple attack, so basically take hold of the opponent, aimed at his glaive. And he did, and he failed the first time because of reasons. But then he tried again, and he got hold of the glaive, and he said, I run away with the glaive. I don't care if the opponent gets to attack me for free, because I am running away from a combat situation without the right preparation. But he was just using his fist, so it wasn't a problem. And the fighter, carrying the glaive, not even wielding it, carrying, started running around, making sure he got into a tactical position. And at this point, I had to make a decision. I was going to make my... Okay, so with my actions, which makes sense in the world, I have to say, but my cultists were going to give off one of two very clear signals. One, this glaive is cooler than it looks, and it's definitely worth saving. Or two, the cultists are, shall we say, not tactical geniuses. And yeah, as I described, both cultists scrambling to get the glaive back, throwing themselves into mortal danger, literally, my players started laughing like, why are they doing this? And, well, maybe they're not tactical geniuses. Who can tell? Or maybe there is something with the glaive. Anyway, after the battle, they had a good look around them, and I described the glaive as looking somewhat familiar. In fact, the metal top bit looked exactly like the tip of the strangely shaped sword of which they found a drawing earlier on, and the small round bit of metal seemed to be of the same material as the glaive tip, I told them. And that's where the session ended. Oh yeah, and inside that room, the map room, or the research room, I suppose, they also found a map with a few cities circled, and so they will investigate those cities in the next adventure. I really very thickly glossed over a lot of details, because the session took a long time, at least 4 hours. Yeah, way more than 4 hours, actually. But it sure was a lot of fun. We all had a great time, and it was possibly the longest session we've ever had. It even had a full dungeon in it that they cleared in one evening, so that was good. And I'm really curious what's going to happen next time. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.